Hey everybody, this is Mr. Cole. This is the Roaring Twenties review. So again, I'm going to skip through some stuff. Just want to hit the big major points. So we're going to start with the politics of the Roaring Twenties. Um, After the war, America becomes an isolationist country, which means that we start pulling away from the involvement in world affairs. We just got into this war that really wasn't our war at the beginning, and eventually we somehow got into it. So the United States starts taking a policy that we're going to start backing off of Europe and world issues because we don't want to get involved in another war like this. Another fear um, of the 1920s was the fear of communism. This was a time called the Red Scare. Um, and the best example of the Red Scare comes to us from the Palmer Raids. What the Palmer Raids were a a witch hunt trying to find communists. So they would break in to people's offices, to people's homes, trying to find papers or books or evidence that someone might be a communist trying to take down the government of our country. And so these people would attack immigrants and attack labor leaders and would sometimes even arrest them and deport them if they feared that this person was a communist. Um, we're going to skip that one. To the business of the Roaring Twenties. Another reason why the Roaring Twenties get that name is because of the mass spread of business that occurs. And so just some couple things. With the growth of the car, Henry Ford creates the Model T and eventually the Model A, which was the cheapest car at the time, and it was very available for people to buy. And so what this leads to is economic growth, new industries, and also a concept called urban sprawl, which is when the cities were able to spread in all directions, mostly because people are able to now drive into work. You don't have to live right next to where you work at. But as the economy keeps growing, the income gap between the rich and poor grew as well. And farmers did not have as much money because they were making too much food, so they got low prices. And people start buying things on what's called an installment plan, which is like a credit card. People are paying for products over time, enjoying it while you pay, which really, the stuff they're buying, they're just borrowing money for. They don't really actually have the money to pay for it. And so when the Great Depression hits, this is going to be a problem because people are not going to be able to pay back their debts, and then more businesses are going to go of out of out of work, out of stock, because people are not really actually buying their products. They're paying a little bit of it each time. Now, the Prohibition one, I'm going to go ahead and skip Prohibition because that video is already posted on Google Classroom. It's called the Prohibition Lecture. So I'm going to go ahead and skip down to flappers. What flappers were young women who embraced the new fashions and the new attitudes of the 1920s. Flapper women changed gender roles. They partied, they drank, they went on dates. They weren't the prim and proper ladies that Victorian era ladies were supposed to act like. And they also gained new work opportunities. Women start becoming independent, living on their own, getting their own jobs, and just overall living a more independent lifestyle. And then lastly, the big thing that we hit on was the Harlem Renaissance. What the Harlem Renaissance was really a movement of literary and artistic works which celebrated African American culture. It celebrated the struggles that African American families had to go through, and it really represented African Americans as a whole in art and in books. And before this, African Americans didn't really have a voice to write about that or to perform about that. And so the Renaissance happened in Harlem, New York, which was a large black neighborhood, and many famous authors like Langston Hughes come out of this time period and out of the Harlem Renaissance. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, I forgot to mention it. We did talk about the Scopes trial and just about fundamentalism in general. Fundamentalism is a type of Christianity with a literal interpretation of the Bible. And so the Scopes monkey trial gave a good example of this, as John Scopes is a biology teacher who was arrested for teaching about evolution. And so the Scopes trial really represented a fight over whether or not science or religion had the power in our public schools. And eventually Scopes was found guilty, which showed that they ultimately won, the religious side ultimately won. But what the Scopes trial really represents is this kind of the dilemma of the Roaring Twenties, that you have young, new people who are trying to push progress forward and are trying to do new things, but then you also have a lot of people who are saying, that change isn't good. We need to start pulling back and going back to the way we were before. And so this is really the Roaring Twenties in general, shows this growth of new ideas and new products and new everything really, but then also people who are, not as quick to change. Okay, so again, I'm sorry that was so fast. These notes are posted online, but that's the Roaring Twenties lecture. All right, guys. Again, email me if you need any questions. See you guys.